Today we're gonna talk about almost all water attribute Aurorians and rate them to find out who the best ones are. And we are actually almost done, because this is already the third out of in total 4 videos. And like you already know from the intro, this time we are looking at the water element. But before we can begin, I like last time do have to give some disclaimers. The first and most obvious thing, of course this list is going to be based on mostly my personal opinion and experience, meaning it's very likely to be pretty biased. So if you disagree with any of my rating decisions, that's completely fine, and I would be happy if you could leave your thoughts in the comments down below. I'm also not going to take any breakthroughs of 5 and 6 stars into account, which also leads me directly to my third point. This list is also only going to cover through gacha obtainable Aurorians, meaning Wolfers and the Silent Hunters are out of the picture. Why? Because those don't need you to spend your precious Lumember and flares, and also have a way easier access to breakthroughs. And there's actually 2 more things that I have to mention. 1. I'm like last time going to split all characters we are talking about into 2 categories, DPS and supporting Aurorians. 2. I'm trying to evaluate all these Aurorians depending on how they perform in these 3 different types of gameplay. Hard content like Elysium, Spire and Co. Burst heavy content, which would be CC and generally just most boss fights. And of course also general content, which is pretty much everything else. If someone is excelling in one specific type of gameplay, I'm also going to mention that, probably. Otherwise, just pay attention to this rectangle. So, now that all of this is out of the way, let me tell you that if you were watching this before the collab already started, to be there on the 13th of January, because we're going to once again do some live rolls for Toru and Co, and also some live character analysis as well. But if you just want to talk about Alchemy Stars with me or others in the community, you should also probably join my community Discord, link in the description down below. And if you really like my content and want to support me so that I can put out more scuffed Alchemy Stars content for you guys, maybe even think about becoming a channel member, which also gives you access to these perks. But enough of that, let's get right into it by first talking about characters that are underwhelming. These are Aurorians that are simply beyond saving, and like usual, there's barely anyone here. So let's start this off with White Dwarf. He's a 3-star DPS that only has a barely usable aggro skill and his way too deep voice to show for. So yeah, he isn't that great. And joining him in this tier is, of course, the infamous, the legendary, the Tentacle Master herself, Connolly. And yes, she is the worst 6-star in the game. And yes, she technically should be at least 1 tier higher, but I refuse. Okay, fine. Let's look at her again later, while we now switch over to average. Like the name suggests, these Aurorians are sadly only average at best, as there are just way stronger options available. And well, we are going to start this off with Constantine, Bethlehem's most trusted ghost hunter. And unfortunately, his combat prowess is as real as the things he hunts, as his active skill is lackluster to say the least, as it's only a global nuke, but maybe ghosts actually do exist, because he does actually have some strong points when it comes to single tile boss fights, as a single target global sniper chain can come in handy for this, and he more importantly also buffs your whole water team in those scenarios. But else he isn't your number 1 choice, unless you're looking to hire someone for another Ghostbuster rework. And speaking of rework, let's get to the one Aurorian that out of everyone in the game desperately needs one the most. Yes, that's right. We are once again talking about Connolly, and you probably want to know why exactly she's the notoriously worst 6-star in the game. Well, that's easy. Besides having this A3 art, and yes I know that's just my personal taste, she also does have this active skill. And yes, that's a really high 5-turn cooldown for barely any payoff at all. And the best part is, the rest of her kit kind of revolves around using this as often as possible. Which is as likely as Connolly not being in Tentacle Paw anyway. I think it's time to move on, because Tourdog sure did. So, let's move over to the supporting Aurorians. And our first candidate is not exactly a support, Seleucid, the best fighter in Umbraton. I somehow doubt that, but why is he here? Well, even though he's a detonator on paper, Mr. Fake Fury is technically a resetter-ish converter. And the only reason he's not chilling down there with White Dwarf is that you can use the skill that gets rid of fire tiles every round, giving it great synergy with characters like Bethel, and making it the most bare-bones converter skill in the game. But hey, some people out there have it rough, like Seleucid, who is constantly so angry that he can't get rid anymore of his helmet. While we're already talking about getting rid of something and resetting, Micheni, who is literally Raphael grown up without her mech and ponytails. So, a boneless converter. While this skill isn't the worst, as locked and broken tiles can sometimes be quite the problem, and this does the job at a low enough cost, this skill in the end is still quite bad, and not the best, hence why she's here. And no, I'm not going to make a joke about her massive scales, her skill set was already enough of one. So, let's look at our next victim, the cat-loving shark, Korgan. And I definitely totally didn't forget about him even existing in the game. Who is Korgan? I guess he's an animal. No, that wasn't me. And that clip is also definitely photoshopped. But regardless of these fake news, why is Grandpa Shark even here? Well, definitely not because of his awful chain or his lackluster equip. So the only thing left over is his captivating smile? Is what I would say if this guy had his sawbats in my face. But thankfully that's not the case, and well, he's only really average at best, as his active skill can knock back and more importantly reduce the enemy's defense by 10 whole %, but that's not always going to be useful, especially if you have to use a 3-star which loses you a lot of damage. And our already lost average Aurorian is Zoya. And she's very simple, just a very generic healer with sadly only one healing chain thanks to her 3-star status, which is also the reason why she's only here. And now that we're done with all the average goods, let's move on to Solid. This describes Aurorians that are not perfect, but just all around pretty solid picks in a lot of scenarios. And our first pick is this Ice Bear, and well, also this Penguin. Together, they do offer a, to be fair, pretty meh active skill that can damage and at least convert 2 tiles under your enemies, but the main reason I put those two here is a, to be fair, really strange one, which fits them perfectly, and that is the pretty chunky team HP increase of 20% they provide by just slotting them in, which means that they not only give you some okay damage, but also a bit more overall survivability, which is not too bad. And speaking of not too bad, look at this beauty, who is actually also our next candidate, Jane. And not only does she have a top tier VA, which is definitely not why she's up here, no, I swear. It's actually more of a Chandra situation, as her active skill only has a 1-turn cooldown, and is perfect for getting rid of annoying ads, or giving Bethel's Franks some more work. And before I forget, she's also the stalker that leaks all the juicy details about new Aurorians in her newspaper. And well, there's lots of Aurorians we do still have to check out. So, let's switch over to our supporting Aurorians. And we're going to start this off with Noah. And it's 100% a coincidence that she is also voiced by Rie Takashi, trust me, I would never lie to you. Which is also why I'm going to tell you straight up that you're only going to use her in fights where there's some big damage you simply can't dodge, as her active skill provides a huge shield that lasts as long as my Luma stash when a new 6-star releases, but at least it does give you some heals when it disappears, unlike my fading away rolls which only leave me with some more depression. So yeah, Noah does have her uses, but isn't that great of a healer in general. And the complete opposite of that is Tweety. And well, she's very good teleporter, as she has a 2-turn teleport with a 2-cluster range that can also TP to any blue tile on the field, and just as a nice bonus, resets its own CD whenever you enter Aurora time, giving Twitter's mascot some extra synergy with lots of conversion, making her overall a pretty good option if you want some more mobility or Uvu in your life. But if you're instead looking for some healing, a whole field reset, and maybe a huge rocket shooting mecha featuring a small pink-haired girl with a cross-shaped rocket launcher, you might be interested in Raphael, who is the Water Element's main reset option, and currently missing in action since the Ocean Sovereign Sandcastle incident. If you have any tips regarding her well-being, please contact IDCPLSSUB. And well, she's also pretty much the healer version of Uriel, as she also has a field reset with a pretty hefty CD and a not that great blue tile generation chance. So you're only really going to use her when you have to, aka when facing off versus lock tiles and friends. Else you're probably gonna look for some better options. And speaking of better options, let's now look at all characters that are strong. These are top tier characters, or at least close to it, that are often some of the best choices in most scenarios. And you already know the drill by now, our first DPS is the living slot machine himself, Corex. He's not only your man if you're in need of a beauty surgeon that surely won't forget a scalpel inside of you, but also if you're looking for a cheaper alternative to Sharona, as Umbraton's Dr. House has pretty much the same skill set, aka a 3-turn CD, global teleport, and some decent damage. But in this case, it comes with a slight twist, because using Corex is the true gambling experience, as every normal attack is split into 2 damage instances, which each have a 20% chance to deal 50% more damage. Hence his totally legit nickname I didn't come up with myself. Yeah, trust me. Everyone calls him Slot Machine Man. But you know what? Gambling is bad, and you should rather put your faith into the Prime Minister of Lumopolis. Why? Easy. His name is Daniel, and look at his shoes, and his daughter. Her name? Pauline. Her profession? Rich noble. But that's not all, because she's not your standard entitled noble. Colleen puts in some real hard work in the form of a 4-turn CD column converting global teleport. And that's once again not all, as our second favorite travel partner does also support us with her equipment that increases her damage whenever she traverses a blue tile. Who did she learn these amazing land skills from? Well, from the notorious Queen of the Northlands, Wait, that's not her? Are you sure? Anyway, our next candidate is your pick if you need your taxes done or want some serious frank action, as she throws these down like there's no tomorrow. And these, to be fair, very eclipse-ish looking little friends that punch enemies real good whenever you use any active skill, give her overall really high damage potential and also synergy with low CD skills, making her a perfect all-rounder DPS, regardless of if you're facing off versus a single or multi-tile enemy. But sadly she doesn't really offer any utility, only pure damage, which is pretty much her biggest downside. Speaking of only damage, there's another very similar case, Fleur. And his handyman is pretty handyman, because he's probably one of the best snipers in the game when it comes to raw damage potential, as he does have global sniper chains with the always welcome addition of small but still very nice splash damage. And that's by far not everything. His by far most outstanding feature is his ability to just have his own personal double chain skill, which you can target enemies with like a true sniper. And in stark contrast to how these skills usually work, his double chain effect actually lasts for the whole round, meaning triggering Aurora time gives you another chance at double the fun and double the pain for your foes, which is also going to extra hurt when they are at less than half HP, as this gives him some extra damage that can also increase even further, making him a really good boss killer and sniper in general. And speaking of really good DPS characters, here's our already last dedicated DPS for the water element, Sharona. While she is not per se the character that's going to offer you the biggest amount of raw damage, she's the one that gives you the most balanced combination of good damage and nice utility, thanks to her 3-turn CDE global teleport. That also synergizes quite well with her kit, as it does also apply dragon tooth marks similarly to her normal attacks, which can give her a significant increase in overall damage output, and truly justifies that she is one of the 4 powerful Illumina Federation commanders. And speaking of powerful, let's gaze at even more really strong Aurorians by now moving on to the supporting ones. And our first one is, depressed musician? Chloe is sad, but for a reason, as you are probably not even using her in your water teams, which is a real shame, because she is quite a powerhouse. Her active skill allows her to collect marks that she gets whenever she goes through blue tiles, and boosts the attack of all team members by 0.5% of Chloe's attack for every single mark, and every single blue tile currently on the field. Hold on, I know, that's not even all. Her equip also reduces the attack and defense of enemies in a 2-cluster range by 5% whenever she uses a chain or her active skill. And all of this makes her literally perfect for setting up, for example, big burst turns. And you know who else is also perfect for that? The big bad dual wolf, Hydrat. And yes, he's water's double chain support, so the main enabler for big burst combos in the first place. And that's basically all you need to know about Hydrat. Same thing applies to the already second Illumina commander we're going through today, Bart Simpson. Not only is he the cross-converter of the water element, but also a pretty decent sub-DPS thanks to his ability to do diagonal attacks. And I don't think I need to tell you, in a lengthy fashion, why cross-converters are just that good. They just convert a huge amount of tiles, but obviously at quite a huge cost of a 5-turn CD, making them not always the #1 choice. So if you're looking for more rapid conversion or a tour through Lomopolis, your best bet is probably Miss Blanc, as she is the, to be fair, most scuffed 4-tile converter in the game, but also by far the cheapest, as Tourdog slaps one copy of her literally in your face after the tutorial. And for a good reason. Not the slap, but Miss Blanc, as she's the only 4-star 4-tile converter in the game, which obviously also comes at a cost, because she, unlike her brethren, doesn't convert the nearest type of one color, but instead always 4 tiles in a cross shape. So that's what living in Lomopolis does to people, huh? But jokes aside, Miss Blanc is an overall amazing choice if you need conversion and don't have access to her 5-star and 6-star colleagues. Trust me, I used her for like 4 months, so just don't get lost and always stay behind your trusty guide. Otherwise, you might lose your way and end up in the Northlands. How did you do that? Well, that aside, you know who else is in the Northlands? The Queen. No, not that Queen. Queen Bethlehem. This time the real deal. And she's not only a true master of the sword, but also water's main selectile converter. While her CD might be quite lackluster, she does kind of make up for it with the ability to allow you to freely choose 4 tiles on the field and convert them to blue. And don't underestimate how powerful this can truly be. But if you do want to know all dirty little details about our little queenie, like for example how her side hustle is working in a maid cafe, then check out my review about her, after finishing this video of course. And well, let's let's get slowly to the finish line by once again talking about Colleen the Schwartz, as she also takes after her master. Same CD, same also has an attack buff, but in her case a selfish one. The only real difference between those two is that Colleen offers more utility and a larger quantity of tiles, while Beth is the real noble here, as she's more picky about the tiles she wants to convert. Both have their ideal use cases, both are really good. Beth is overall the better supplement to other converters, while Carl is the better standalone character. And well, you might have noticed that there is still a certain Aurorian missing, and that's because we're going to finish this tier up with Illumina's best cat girl, Philoshy. What can I say? Even though I stand by the credo, conversion is king, Philai is just way too good, and is truly a hidden 6-star, as she's one of the best healers in the game. Why? Just look at her. A 3-turn CD global teleport that also heals and gives you a shield on top of it, which might remind you of another certain healer. And yes, this skill is similarly quite simply super stacked, and that extra bit of utility it provides to your team is just simply amazing. And of course that's not all. She also has standard healing chains, but the healing doesn't stop here, as you just get some extra free heals at the start of every single round thanks to her equipment. So, if you need healing on water, Philai is your girl, cat girl. And with that our journey is almost over, but we do still have to look at the highest quality of juicy, mountain-sourced water. So let's check out our final rating tier. Core. Characters that are, like the name already hints at, core in almost every team, as they are just way too overpowered and achieve things that other Aurorians can't reproduce with the same efficiency and/or power. And, well, what can I say? There's only 2 gacha Aurorians left, and of course these 2 are the most obvious choices for the core tier: Octobro and Sariel. I don't think I have to say much. At this point everyone watching my content should know that 4-tile converters in general are just really good. Why? Easy. No RNG, a good amount of converted tiles, low cooldowns, and also as a special offer, a preemptive strike for a total of $0. Besides that, Kaleken has some extra utility thanks to his sphere that can come in handy when you're dealing with awakened foes. And Sariel has a pretty decent defense buff and a cat. Look at the cat. Not, you know what, at the cat. Whatever, let me finish this up by showing you the full list. Did this list help you? Cause I sure hope it did. But don't forget to take everything you just heard with a grain of salt. And of course, like usual, a huge thanks to all of my channel members, you guys are the best. And if you also want some extra love from me and these perks, maybe even think about becoming a channel member. But regardless of that, I do want to hear your opinion. So if you disagree with anything or just have something to share, just comment down below. And don't forget to like and subscribe and to join the Discord server. That was all from me, have a nice day and see you next time.